Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee with a Counselor Graduation Edition as we enter into our final week of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and thus our last two Coffee with a Counselor Graduation Edition episodes. Today, we are going to be talking about communication and how you as a parent and child unit can come together to face the upcoming transitions. So go ahead and grab a cup of whatever your beverage of choice is this afternoon. Get comfortable and let's chat. So leaving home, it's bittersweet for everyone. Parents are so excited to see their kids begin this new chapter while also being filled with so much sadness that the last 18 years of childhood are coming to an end. Students, you're eager to go out and establish yourselves with your new independence, while you also might hesitantly be looking back at the safety and familiarity of home. All of this might bring about an urge for you as parents to grasp and pull your kids in tighter than ever. And students, this might create an urge for you of wanting to push back and push harder, push away harder than ever. And neither of you are right or wrong for those reactions. But it can create a difficult dynamic to navigate. And so how do we come together to figure out and resolve when we're at these odds together? The first step is to have an honest, non-judgmental conversation with each other about where you're at. And in doing so, remember that no one can read minds. We have to clearly and directly label our wants and needs. We want to try and stay away from thought patterns like, oh, well, he's going to college, he should know to do this. Or my mom should know by now that I need space when I'm angry. And staying away from similar behaviors or thought patterns that are maybe more silent, where we're waiting for someone to say or do something, but we don't tell them that. And then we start to get angry, and then we start to build up frustrations because the other person appears to be absolutely clueless, because chances are they are clueless because we can't read each other's minds. So if you're needing someone to do something or not do something, communicate those expectations and desires to one another. We also want to find open and honest communication styles that work for our specific family relationships and our specific dynamics. Everyone has a conflict template. That is to say, a style of responding to and resolving conflict that's unique to each person. For some people, when they get angry and they're in the face of conflict, they get loud and explosive and they might yell, there could be slamming. While other people might get more quiet and introspective. They might ruminate and play the conversation in their head over and over again, or think about what they're going to say in response for sometimes hours before they even ever actually say something. Some people like to stay up all hours of the night to try and find resolve, while other people might need some time and space to cool down before they can engage in productive resolution. So it's important that you know how you respond to conflict, that you know how your family members respond to conflict, and where there are differences in that, look for compromises. If you need space but someone else likes immediate resolution, try finding something in the middle. Like if you need several hours to cool down but they need to talk right away, is a 20 or 30 minute break good enough? Or maybe 1 hour instead of 3, 4, or 5. Finding that middle ground where it's not ideal for anyone, but that both people are coming to meet more in the middle. Conflict, as a word, when we say it, has such a negative connotation. And it's not actually always a bad thing. Conflict can truly be a positive and growth-oriented experience. At its core, conflict simply means that there's a difference in opinion, belief, or value. And by that definition, conflict can become a catalyst for civil discourse, compromise, and a better understanding of one another. And so it's important to remember that just because it feels like we're not on the same page doesn't mean that we have to be in an argument. That conflict can exist without being a negative thing or a tension-inducing thing. While in conflict, it's critical to remember that you are on the same team. When we disagree with someone, we often get so caught up in being right that we defend and validate us being right at the expense of our relationships. When we're in an argument with family, we have to reframe our default thought of it's me versus them to we are in this together. When we remember that we are all on the same side and want a resolution that prioritizes our relationship over validating our need to be right, we open the door to more strategic problem solving and collaboration. For parents, it's important that we remember that we model behaviors that we model behaviors to our kids. And so we want to use tones and words that we want our kids to utilize in conflict. If when we're upset and we're angry and we yell and scream and storm off and slam the door, but then we expect our teen to sit down at the table and calmly have an adult conversation with us when they're upset, that's not a fair expectation. So we have to model the conflict resolution that we want them to practice. And for students, it's important to remember that conflict is an opportunity for you to demonstrate your maturity and your growth into adulthood. It's a chance to show, hey, I've outgrown and I've put to bed some of my more juvenile responses to conflict, like eye rolling or maybe copying an attitude. And hey, look, we can sit down and we can have this adult, mature conversation. When we talk about conflict, we also have to talk about communication. And in talking about communication, there's three main styles. On one end of the spectrum, we have passive communication, where we never really speak out against anything. When we're hurt or we're wronged, we don't address that. We don't let someone know that we're hurt. We just kind of sit there and take it. On the other end of the spectrum, and at the opposite extreme, we have aggressive communication, which is very in your face. It might be yelling, cussing, blaming, name calling type of communication. And in the middle, we have what we strive for, which is assertive communication. We clearly and directly and also kindly address our needs. So the example I might go to, which is a very mundane example, is if someone is chewing gum in a way that's really just getting under your skin and driving you crazy, maybe like big, loud, wet smacks of gum. If we're passive, we're not going to say anything. We're just going to sit there and be irritated. If we're aggressive, we might get in their face and we might say, raise our voice and be like, oh my gosh, like, why can't you just chew gum like a normal person? What is wrong with you? Whereas in the middle, we might say, hey, I think it's great that you're really enjoying your gum right now. And I would appreciate if you could try and chew it a little bit quieter because I'm feeling really sensory overloaded right now. So we're addressing our needs, but we're not insulting, we're not being aggressive. And so that's where we want to try and find that assertive communication. Some other basic communication skills that we'll talk about help us all stay on the same page and help us avoid ineffective pitfalls like blaming. And so one of those skills we're going to talk about is using I statements. And an example of an I statement might be, instead of, you didn't make it home on curfew last night, I was really worried when you weren't home on time. Or instead of, you didn't sign my form and leave it out for me for my appointment today, it was really challenging for me to make it to my appointment on time when I didn't have the form that I needed. When we use I statements, we demonstrate accountability for our feelings and our reactions. And then they can help us minimize the chances of other people getting defensive because we're staying focused on us instead of pointing the finger and saying, you, this is what you did, this is what you didn't do. Another skill to try on for size is reflecting before you respond. When one person is talking, or when one person is done talking, try summarizing and reflecting back to them what they said. It could be as simple as, hey, what I heard you say was XYZ. When we reflect back, we allow ourselves to make sure that we're all on the same page. It shows the other person that we're listening, that we're tracking them, and it provides the opportunity for correction. I know I'm not the only person who has said something, and as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was wishing I could put those words back in of like, oh my goodness, that did not come out at all how I meant it to. As humans, we all need that opportunity or that chance to revise our first draft. And so when we practice reflective listening and someone reflects back to us what they've heard, then we're able to say, yep, nailed it. That's exactly what I was going for. Or, oh goodness, that's way off base. Let me try this another way. It's important that when we practice reflective listening, that we are open to saying something in a different way if it's not connecting. A lot of times if someone reflects and it's not what we were trying to say, we can get really frustrated and be like, oh my gosh, no, never mind. It's not worth it. You're not listening. You're never going to understand. And so avoiding that type of a response and instead looking at a misunderstanding as an opportunity for us to connect where we weren't connecting before. In conflict, we try to assign blame a lot of the times. And so we might blame the other person of, you're not picking the right words, you're not making sense. Or we might blame the other person of, you are not listening, you're not trying to understand. Reflective listening is an opportunity to say, it doesn't matter if it's the words or the listening or what the pitfall is here. What matters is that we're not connecting, and we're going to try and figure out where we're not connecting so that we can come together. When we talk about communication, it's important that we monitor our nonverbal cues. Our nonverbals are our facial expressions, our posture, our proximity, our eye contact, even our breathing. It's been speculated across many different studies that anywhere from 70% to 90% of our communication is done non-verbally. So if our non-verbals are not matching our verbals, what message are we actually sending to someone? If someone comes in and they're like, hey, I need to talk to you, and we're like, okay, yeah, I'm listening, and we're scrolling through our phone like this, our non-verbals are not matching the message that we're listening. Similarly, if someone's, trying to talk to us and it's like, oh, what? Those nonverbals aren't sending the message, hey, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm hearing you. So we want to make sure that those two parts of our communication are sending the same message and that they're not conflicting each other. The last thing we're going to talk about with communication is practicing empathy. And when I say empathy, I mean trying to understand where the other person is, why they're there, and what it feels like for them to be in that place. Practicing empathy helps keeps us from a place of judging or shaming other people, and it can help prevent others from judging or shaming themselves. Dr. Brené Brown is someone that's done an immense amount of work on shame and what she calls shame resiliency, which is to say overcoming shame by building personal strength. And Dr. Brown posits that the opposite of shame is connection. So when we practice empathy and we forge connection, we minimize the opportunity for us to create shame for others, as well as the opportunities for others to create shame for themselves. And so by practicing empathy and trying to understand and connect with where other people are at and why they're there, we're much more likely to come together as that cohesive family unit. Communication, empathy, and coming together as a family unit will help ease everyone through these upcoming transitions. So take some time to have conversations with each other about different communication styles and conflict templates. Try on some of these skills for size and figure out what works best for you and your family. On Thursday, we will wrap up the graduation series by summarizing what all we've talked about throughout May and discuss how you can take all of this information out with you into the real world. So until then, thank you for taking a break with me. I hope to see you back on Thursday for our last Coffee with a Counselor graduation edition episode. In the meantime, take care of each other and yourself, and remember that we here at North Range are here to help. If you or someone you know is experiencing a behavioral health crisis, you can contact our crisis response team at 970-347-2120 and press 2 to speak to crisis services. You can text TALK, T-A-L-K, to 38255, or you can walk into our 24/7 crisis building at 928 12th Street in Greeley, Colorado. Thanks again for taking a break with me, and until next time.